Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Mic Drop. I'm your host, the Mike with the Most, and I don't feel like rhyming it today because, well, that usually sounds boastful. Anyway, welcome to a continuing saga regarding Middlebury Entitlement school systems, where we are continuing to explore the corruption that led and continues to lead to dozens of former students, staff members, and basically anybody that's been involved in the Middlebury Community Schools and has been affected by the entitlement portion. I can't keep up with all the stories that are coming in now. It's amazing that you guys feel so courageous to share your truth, and it warms my heart, and it makes me feel emboldened to continue to share my truth if it even has the smallest effect on you guys feeling more confident in sharing yours. For me, that would be worth all of it. But today's topic is going to be kind of a hot button topic, but it's very appropriate because it's one of Middlebury Entitlement School's strongest and most overly used weapon in their arsenal to keep people in line, to keep control, to keep people obeying. Okay? Some of you guys have not heard this term before, and for some of you, you're all too familiar with it. Some of you guys don't like the term at all because it describes your behavior. So if you're one of those, well, if the shoe fits, right? So today is aptly named gaslighting. And before I get into it any further, those of you guys who don't know what gaslighting is, I will read, just Google gaslighting. Here's the first thing that comes up. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which the abuser attempts to sow self-doubt and confusion in their victim's mind. Typically, gaslighters are seeking to gain power and control over the other person by distorting reality and forcing them to question their own judgment and intuition. That was a mouthful. If I were to simplify that in its basic nature for my truth, gaslighting is a way that they screw with your mind to make you feel less confident about yourself so they can control you. They will tell you their truths in a way that only has a goal to get you to fall in line or to get you to do something for them. And so this entire time I've been telling you guys the purpose of these truths are so that you will come up with your own truths using your own critical and analytical thinking, which has been stifled by the entitlement portion of Middlebury Community Schools. With this particular topic, I'm going to share my story of how it happened to me, but then I'm going to encourage you guys too to be a little bit self-reflective too and see if this may or may not be true for your truth. Again, I'm not here to tell you your truth. I'm here to listen to your truth and share mine. So, kind of going into it, I was going to tell you my story about how gaslighting affected me. And ironically enough, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the lovely, supportive comments that are pouring in through the YouTube channels. Most of them are supportive. Some of them are very, I think the term the kids use is basic. They operate out of like they're a programmed, they're like they are a programmed entitlement robot that whenever you input a truth that doesn't make sense to them, they immediately poop out a gaslighted version, which is manipulated and distorted reality to make them exactly the way they want to look. Here's how this happened to me. When I started at Middlebury Community Schools, I had taken over a sabbatical for the then counselor, Mr. T. Mr. T went off to go and try his hand at being an associate pastor, and I think he ended up loving it because he chose not to return to employment and continue his work there. When I started, I had a very open mind about the different varieties of children and the different types of problems, and basically I had a complete open mind to just about anything and everything that could come my way in this profession. And there were times, as you guys probably have read by the multitude of stories now that have poured out both on Facebook and on YouTube, sharing their stories of, kids know me or they don't know me, and either way they have felt safer, more emboldened to share their truth. They were either my kid or they weren't. and that's such a... God, I fought against that distinction, like, from day one. Like, we sat down, there was clear distinction on these are your kids, and these are your kids, and these are your kids, and these are the ones that you're assigned to work to, so there you go. Well, last I checked, children don't divide their friendships by alphabet. And if that's the case, then students who are assigned to me with a certain letter of a last name are most likely going to have their academics, their social life, and their career paths influenced by someone among their age, amongst their peers, right? And I would be a very poor counselor, which I'm not. I would be a very poor counselor if I did not utilize the resources every resource available that was to help my student with whatever, including reaching out to students who were not in my assigned alphabet to help students that were in my assigned alphabet. And these are very particular situations. Nothing that would anywhere go near like the crisis model of stuff that I put out where you have to take action. But this is more of like a I don't know. A student felt alone in the way that they were, studying for a test, and they felt like they're never ever going to get it. And I happen to know it. It's one of my kiddos, but they're talking about their friend who's in a different alphabet, and they seem to have it all, and no problem studying, and it just comes naturally to them, and how they wish they could, maybe study together. I'll call a kid down. When it's not part of their instructional time, which probably could be, study block, study hall, something like that. Generally, I don't send passes for students in this regard because I will go down during lunch duty and I'll try to see every single child in the building. And a lot of the time when I was down at lunch duty, I would get, an easy, good 100 to 200 check-ins of my 400 assigned kids, just by people coming up and saying hi and giving a high five or a hand hug or a hug or anything. They just wanted to tell me how their day was. And so I was like, hey Mom, what's up, man? How's your job? I'm doing well. Great. What's going on in your world? Nah, I'm cool, man. I'll talk to you later. I'm cool with that, because it's not about me. It's never been about me. But in this particular truth and in these particular drops, this is something that happened to me that resonates with other students and staff members as it's happened to them. So the part that involves me in this one is going to be a little bit bigger. And the reason I mentioned gaslighting is because one of the commenters on one of my YouTube posts literally wrote the most perfect sentence I think that has ever represented what gaslighting actually looks like. Okay? Now, you guys might not be able to follow along. I'm not sure how you watching videos actually works, but if you like, you can go back to my channel and you can click on the most recent of my YouTube videos. I believe it was part 13. I've been doing a lot of these parts and they've been kind of going fast and furious. Yeah, so part 13 of the data manipulation. We had a comment by a guy.
It's just the nature of how communication works.
And I think it's still there, or I would hope it's still there. Yep, there it is. And this is from a parent of one of the entitled families of Middlebury Community Schools, as was told to me by everyone who knows this handle and who knows his son. I posted this comment as a way to show what it looks like when you have to defend your truth. And I just wanted to post an example of what it looked like for everybody that's been following me along on this on my Facebook. And immediately, as soon as I posted it, people were responding like, "Oh my God, this family's always been entitled, and this family's like that." Everyone's entitled to their own truth. I will not stop any of it. I don't care about this person's situation only because they don't even show the single ounce of care about yours, from my experience. But anyway, here's a sentence that I wrote that is the perfect example of gaslighting. You ever stop to think, hey, all these different people at my workplace don't seem to like me because maybe it's me, not them? Question mark. Okay? Now, most of you would think that that's a pretty harmless question. Like, hey, just offering a different perspective, kind of wanting to think if you're the common denominator here, maybe you're the problem and not them. I could see where you're coming from. Honestly, that's not illogical. That's not even unintelligent. That's it's a good question. Unfortunately, for the simplicity of his question, my answer did a little bit more than what this man was expecting, because I went in to describe what it was like for me based on that sentence alone, and it included the term gaslighting. So here's what it said. I can do one better than that, actually. I was psychologically conditioned, manipulated, and gaslighted during my entire time at Middlebury Community Schools to believe that exact sentence. Very similar to how the marginalized children have been sharing their stories lately. Turns out, you're right, it was me. The reason they didn't like me, however, is because I prioritized the entire student's body's well-being instead of the select few, which unfortunately, after your comments today, my truth would say that you are, in fact, part of that select few. Now, you guys can read the comment over yourself, and I posted it out there for a reason. The purpose of today's mic drop is literally how to deal with bullies that utilize gaslighting as their primary mode of attack. In my experience working at Middlebury Community Schools, I have been gaslighted by Mr. Andrew Wood, Summer Runyon, Andrea Smeltzer, Kelsey Tote, Carly Meeker, Stephanie Preem, and those are the ones that I would have allowed enough insight into me as a professional to even take what they say as valuable. Thankfully, over time, as their true colors continued to reveal themselves, I believed in them less and less. And so what you have is what is known as well, I'll say that one for later. There's an unfortunate side effect of gaslighting if it affects you, and it's called learned helplessness. And we'll get that. Well, I'm going to get to that one a little bit later. But how was I gaslighted? I will give you perfect examples. Malahan, you're not doing the job that we want you to do. Therefore, you are doing your job poorly. My response, true. I am not doing the job that you want me to do. Comma. However, I'm doing the job that you should be doing. And because you're not, I'm not able to put everything I have into whatever it is that your agenda requires of me, because I have to take care of your kids too. And here's the thing about other counselors, kids. They don't like it when you go to them and request another counselor. They don't like it when you go and say, I don't feel safe talking with my assigned counselor. I'd like to talk to someone else. When I was gaslighted, I was made to feel continually that the work that I was doing was not good, which is weird because my evaluations were always highly effective or effective. So anyway, I get my signals crossed with them from time to time. But I was being told at that time that the way that I was doing the job was the wrong way to do the job, and that I needed to get back in line or stay in my lane, or my favorite, stay in your office. Why are you never in your office, Malahan? Why we can't ever find you? Yeah, I'll tell you why. And I'll reach out to the parents that were also a little bit disgruntled by having it a hard time to find me in my office. The office at Middlebury Community Schools guidance department has become so militaristic on how to get back there that I wouldn't be surprised if children stopped coming down to tell you anything real at all. The process that you had to even just get behind the door to sit with a counselor was ridiculous in my world. And so when I saw that there was a child in need, and a lot of the time it wasn't something that you could wait on. It was actionable intelligence that you go to where there is a problem and make sure that it doesn't devolve further into a worse problem. And I would just go to the problem. Now, sure, could I have, maybe let people know a little bit more where I was going from time to time? Absolutely. But as the situations dictated, when there are crises, I'm not going to, no, sorry. I'll take I actually took my walkie-talkie with me the entire time that I had to leave, eventually because I was required to. That's how often I was out with the students helping them, which looked great to the students and the community and looked terrible to the other counselors and administration that I was the only one doing it. This is a mic truth. You don't have to believe me. I'm not asking you to believe me. If you're listening, it's because I think you do believe me, or at least maybe you want to hear what I have to say. Either one. Again, take this as Mike's truth only. Gaslighting, I'm not lying when I say this. Gaslighting was the single worst thing that was done to me at that school that led me to the darkest places that I went. And when I was in a year of recovery, basically, from the trauma that had happened to me from, personal life and work life and, acts of God and nature all at once, I found that my truth was stifled to the point of suffocation. I didn't feel like I could be myself. I didn't feel like I could advocate for myself in the place that I'd spent all of my time trying to advocate for others. And it didn't make sense. Like, if you want me to advocate for children here in your school district, and I'm doing that, but you don't like what they have to say, you want me to stop advocating for them and instead support the school more? Nope. Not with me. It's the same thing I said in my interview. I'll say it again. I had an interview today, and it went great. And I said the exact same thing. I said, if you hire me, please know I'm here for the students, not the school. Thankfully, the schools out here are a little bit less entitled and a little bit less stuck in their ways. You could say they were a little bit more progressive, maybe a little bit more inclusive, but not scary and not so non-traditional that you have to reinvent the wheel, just a different approach. I believe that when people hire me, they think that I'm saying that because it's some kind of war cry or establishment of who I am as a person that I absolutely have to say. No, I'm going to tell you, when you hire me and you see me and I have to choose between advocating for the student and advocating for the school, I'm advocating for the student. If that's a problem, don't hire me. Cool. But that's why I'm here. I go to work for public education to advocate for students that don't have a voice, because public education nationally isn't the greatest place for people to feel safe to offer dissenting opinions or their own truths. You don't believe me? Look it up. That doesn't have to be a mic truth. You guys are just as intelligent as I am to do your own research. Go look at it. The reason that gaslighting is so destructive is because in a time frame when children are developing their sense of self, especially in high school, when they're basically pre-adulting and having to make some very huge life decisions over the course of those 4 years, there is not a single greatest time in my experience with children that their truth needs to be protected the most. They're trying to figure out the world. They're trying to see where they would fit based on their talents, their intelligence, their wants, their needs, their desires, because that's what it's about. It's about them, not about the school. Not all schools operate that way. Many do. Many schools aren't corrupt. Many school corporations around the country, public included, are fighting the good fight without corrupting their morals in order to keep their doors open, or in order to look good in the press, or look good to the local stakeholders that have tons of money that seem to rule your school district. Mic drop. You don't like what I have to say? You're welcome to come and debate me on it, but like the other people that have tried to already and failed horribly, please come more intelligently than they have. Everybody's used to you guys being gaslighters and manipulating reality so that it stays the way that you see it. If there was not a problem with the way it was, Middlebury Entitlement schools, I'd be willing to bet that a man wouldn't have killed himself at your middle school parking lot. I could be wrong, but I could also be right. And from my personal experience, the gaslighting led me to question my own life as well. I've not always been the confident person that I have appeared to be on the mic drop. In fact, for the longest time, I didn't understand how to value myself. The only way that I did find true, pure value in myself was every time I was able to help a child. And so I latched onto that like hardcore while I was still trying to figure out who I was at my core. And as a fortunate consequence of all the trauma and all the stuff that I faced at the school and so on and so forth, I grew to understand my truth a lot more. And it played out when I came back to talk to Mr. Wood the day of the school board meeting. And he pulled me into his office to try and, let's use political words. Mr. Wood pulled me into his office in order to incite a reaction from me that would justify his reasoning for placing a trespass on me and getting me out of the school system as soon as possible and not return as to offer my truth that would conflict with his. That's what happened to me. Gaslighting is what makes you go home at night and question who you are, or if you'll ever be anything, or if you ever amount to anything, or if it's the worst thing you can do to a child in my eyes, verbally. Plenty of other stuff you can do, but it's destructive to the point where it changes someone's identity. If you needed a greater example of a school system teaching kids to obey instead of think for themselves, find every single sentence like Mr. Bigler put on there and find where they're gaslighting. Call it out. Like, you guys get to go to the school board meetings. I don't. So if you want to go there and they start gaslighting you, you can call them out. Tell them I sent you. Malahan would say that's gaslighting. Well, Malahan's not here, is he? Yeah, whose fault is that? Who made it illegal for him to show up to the only place you allow dissenting opinions for less than 3 minutes and not always uninterrupted? Man, you've made it a safe place to have good, awesome dialogue about the health and future of your children. Good job, Middlebury Community Schools, as always. You wonder why people don't show up? You wonder why I don't have a lawyer doing this behind the scenes? Because that's where you thrive. Corruption, evil, manipulative people, they thrive in the darkness. They thrive in the closed doors conversations between a lawyer and a lawyer because they don't want anything public. That's why people hire lawyers, so that they can keep people from saying their truth. Well, guess what? I learned that out real quick, that the way I'm doing it, you can't sue me. You can try, but it's my opinion. It's my truth. I get to share it. It's protected by the First Amendment. You don't like it, don't show up to my channel. In fact, I think it's ironic that the only two naysayers ever in the history of this have both proven themselves to be parents of parents of students at that school that would fall into more of the entitlement category. I'm not going to speak for kids. That's not my job. I'm to speak for myself and be a voice to kids that ask me to speak for them. That is my job. So I'm going to leave you with a challenge. All of the school board minutes, all the stuff that's been posted, all of that is evaluated, changed, and produced to you guys after almost anything in it can make the school look bad. Don't know if you guys knew that or not. But when they put out the proposed minutes, they don't have all the information in there. And what they used to post about the expressions from patrons has now really, really gone down to barely anything whatsoever, because the corporation lawyer told them that in order to avoid more corruption being made real, we should limit how often they get to talk, where they can talk, and whether or not we can interrupt them. That's how control works. That's just my experience. And I know you guys have a ton of your own that you're willing to share. And I'll hear them, post them, because I'm calling everybody out. I'm not stopping, okay? You've got an ally when it comes to being gaslighted and questioning who you are as a person and your value. Hopefully my truth can help break through some of that if it's something that you need. So I will leave you guys with this one since we're getting close to the 25-minute mark. In your jobs, in your relationships, in your teachers, professors, whomever you would have above you, your peers, gaslighting seems harmless. But it plants the seeds of some very self-destructive inner thoughts. And not everybody is strong enough to counteract them. And this is going right to Middlebury Community Schools, so you can see me. For all of you that think that what I'm saying doesn't exist and it just doesn't, resonate with your truth, that's fine. It's okay. It doesn't have to. But if you try to tell me that my truth is mine alone and it's just a bunch of made-up stories, you are disrespecting every child who's been brave enough since graduation to come out and share their own. Leave me out of it. Or if you want to attack me and something that is mine alone, not a truth that I'm representing of dozens of people. You're not going to win. You can take me down all you want. I'll speak louder. You can ban me from everything you would like. I'll show up anyway. Completely legally. Not causing a disruption. Only because you said I couldn't. And it's the only place you'll allow me to share my truth. Give me a different avenue for which to share my truth, other than coming on YouTube and having to go to your school board meetings, Middlebury Community Schools, name the time and place. I'll be there. It'll be public. And if I'm going to show up to defend my truth, and you're going to be in an environment where you can't sit behind your thrones and dictate who can and cannot say their truth, you better prepare for a really good conversation. I say that with love, because the hope is that the corruption would be eliminated through conversations like that. But if you're afraid to stand for your truth because it's corrupt, keep doing what you're doing. Keep limiting people who can share their truth. Somebody asked Middlebury Community Schools right now if they have a list of every single account or comment that they've blocked since I started the mic drop a few weeks ago, because it's approaching triple digits now as far as posts and people. Former graduates, dozens of your community members, Middlebury, that are graduates and are parents and functioning members of your society right now are being blocked by the same school system that bullied them, gaslighted them, and took advantage of them, and the people that they looked up to in staff members. You should see how much I love you guys. I don't care what happens to me. Actually, I really never have. I care what happens to me now a little bit more, only because I believe in the purpose of this message. And I believe that not just for Middlebury Community Schools, but for public schools that are all over the country that face this level of corruption, gaslighting, and manipulation, that are teaching kids to obey instead of critically and analytically think for themselves to get prepared for what the real world is going to throw at them. Hear me now. When I have finished with Middlebury Entitlement Schools and their corruption, you're next. Every kid deserves their truth. Every child deserves the ability to have their own identifiers and their own truth, regardless of your feelings on the matter. Period. And if you haven't learned that yet, that's what you're going to need to learn first if you want to ever hope to get out of the corrupt place that you've become. I'd like to thank you for listening to another episode of Mic Drop presented by Mr. Mullahan. I didn't take the time to really get undressed from work because the interviews got done right at 2:15. So I rushed right home to be able to do this. And I just want to let you guys know it's going so awesomely. I feel I'm being led to exactly where I'm supposed to be to do the greatest good for other marginalized students. And it's very exciting for me, the opportunities that are unfolding in front of me going forward. Because I know what I want now. And I know what I won't settle for now. So when I walk into an interview, I interview them more than they interview me. That's the confidence I believe that you guys should have in your own selves, which is why gaslighting needs to be stopped. Period. End of story. This has been Mike for the Mic Drop. As you can tell, I'm a little bit passionate today, but how's that different than any other day? If your stories and your truths resonate with this, you've been gaslighted by Middlebury Entitlement Schools and you want to talk something about it, or you want someone to say something for you, reach out to me. I'll share your story. Everything's public on the Mic Drop, so go ahead and share what you think. Okay? I love you guys. Stay strong. You're a lot better than what people would try to make you think that you are. And if you need someone to help remind you of how awesome you are, I know a guy. Love you guys. We out.